everyone, welcome to Move the Finish Line. I'm your host, April Nowlin, and if you're looking for a podcast that's authentic, unfiltered, that may make you laugh and might make you cry, you're in the right place. Get ready for an exciting ride with me and my guests as we share stories of resilience, restoration, and winning at life from everyday women. My goal is to encourage you to break through the barriers that are stopping you from chasing your purpose. All right, let's get ready to move the finish line. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Move the Finish Line podcast. I am super excited. We are in season 2, and sometimes I cannot believe that we're in season 2 because I didn't think there was going to be a season 1, but we're in season 2 of the podcast, and our focus this season is on really a couple different areas. So it's all about relationships, right? So it's surviving divorce. It is surviving unhealthy relationships. It is divorce recovery. What does that mean? What does it even look like? I've talked to so many women on my journey who didn't know that there was help in the recovery process. It was, I got help while I was getting divorced. I may have had a lawyer. I may have had a coach, but what happens next? And so that's what we're here to talk about today. And I'm excited to welcome my guest, Coach Carla Webb. And she is a relationship and divorce recovery coach. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here.
Yes. So I met Coach Carla. We were in a podcast group, I think, together a few months ago, and I had posted something and she left a comment and I was like, she seems pretty cool. And so we had an opportunity to chat with each other, found out that we do very similar work. We both help women to recover successfully from divorces. And so I wanted to bring her on the podcast and just share her story. Most of us who are in this industry, we have a story, right? And so yes, I wanted Carla to share hers. Absolutely. So Carla, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a divorce recovery coach, relationship coach. And as you can guess, I got into that because of going through a divorce myself. And I went through about 10 years ago, I went through a very high conflict divorce. And there was a history of domestic violence there. There were protective orders in place. There was, CPS and all of those things. And that then started a 4-year court battle that I was engaged in, trying to get the abuse against myself and my children stopped once and for all. And that took us into court for 4 years, trying to get that to happen. And ultimately, what happened is my children ended up having to get supervised visitation with their dad because mostly what he did was verbal and emotional abuse, which is extremely difficult to document. And that's why we were in court for so long, is because how do you document verbal abuse, especially whenever it's happening when they are with him? So I'm not witnessing it firsthand, so I can't testify to it in court because that's hearsay. My boys are 10 and 7 years old when this all begins. Yeah. And of course, they have a guardian ad litem appointed to them, but we're not constantly wanting to have to interview them and make them go through this process over and over again. So finally, I got the supervised visits did not go well. And that documentation was admissible in court, and I got full legal and physical custody of my boys. And so that's kind of that backstory as to why did I get so passionate about relationships, creating healthy relationships, and going through that divorce recovery process. And so essentially, I became what I wish I would have had when I was going through that process.
Yes, that is so good. So many things in just that little bit of story. One of the things I want to point out is when we talk about unhealthy and abusive relationships, the first thing we go to is physical abuse, right? That's what everyone thinks about. But emotional abuse is just it. I would say it's just as, and sometimes even worse, in the sense that scars heal quicker than the emotional abuse does, right? And so being in a situation like that, and I'm assuming, were you the person that decided to leave your relationship also? And then why, what made you, what was that aha moment that you said, you know what, this has got to end? What was that moment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, if I'm going to take you back kind of, if I'm going to go from the beginning real quick, just to kind of see how, so you can get an idea how it started, and then I'll jump to that.
Perfect.
There's a lot in the middle. So when I met my ex-husband, I was right out of high school, 18 years old, getting ready to go off to college. And I met him, and it was just kind of very fast and furious, the whole whirlwind romance.
Oh, I know.
A lot of love bombing and that I didn't know that's what it was called at the time. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
And his approach to me was, I have been praying. I'm a person of faith.
Right.
And so he comes to me and says, I've been praying that God would send me someone to help me to get back in church, because I was raised in church and now I'm not in church. Mm-hmm. Help me to get back in church and help me become the man that I know I'm not, but I want to be. And, he tells me about his dysfunctional family, and he doesn't have a good example and a good role model of a healthy marriage relationship, even though his parents are still together and all of this stuff. And I'm like, well, so, yes, I will help you.
Absolutely. I'm here for you.
I'm here for you. I believe in you, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And I came from a phenomenal family. I mean, my mom and dad have been happily married, not just married, but happily married for 57 years. They still hold hands. They're still just the cutest little things. So I had a wonderful example of a Christian marriage. And I was like, well, sure, my family's just going to take you in, and we will model what a healthy relationship is. And I believe that he would, well, first of all, he told me that's what he wanted.
Right.
And second of all, I thought, well, once he sees it, he really is going to want it for himself and for our family. So that's how it all started. So our relationship was a quote unquote God thing. Oh, he prayed for me. He prayed that God would send him someone. I was the answer to the prayer. So now our relationship is a God thing. And essentially, throughout our whole entire relationship, that is what kept me hooked in to the relationship. Mm-hmm. Because every time I would try to get out of the relationship, oh, God's still doing a work in me. Don't give up on me. You promised me, all of these things. Okay. So he was every form of abusive except physically. Mm-hmm. I call it the church checklist. You go to your pastor or your elder and you tell them what's going on in your relationship, and well, is he hitting you? Has he ever hit you? No, no bruises, never hit me. Was he cheating on you? Not that I know of. Well, God hates divorce.
Yeah.
And that was that's the whole conversation. There's he's either hitting you, cheating on you, or you need to go pray more, read your Bible more, serve the church more,
be submissive.
Be submissive. Yep. What are you doing to cause him to treat you this way?
Right.
Are you not keeping the house clean, or whatever? So we were married for 15 years.
Wow.
In the relationship for a total of 17 years, married for 15. And about 2 years before I finally left, one day I was walking through the living room, and I did not miss Oprah. From the time Oprah came on when I was in 7th grade, I would come home from school. I'm like, what? Now that I think about it, like as a 7th grader, why am I running home from school to watch Oprah?
Right.
But anyway, so I am a diehard Oprah fan. It's coming on. And before Oprah comes on was Dr. Phil. So I've got the TV on. I'm walking through the living room. Dr. Phil is on. And on the screen, it says, you might be something to the effect, you might be in an abusive relationship if, and then it has all these bullet points. And let's say there's 10 bullet points. One by one, I'm looking at them and I'm going, that's me.
Yeah.
That's me. And I just stood there frozen looking at the screen, because let's say there's 10 bullet points. 8 of them, at least 8 or 9 of them, were not physical abuse. We're not physical violence. And I'm like, what? There's other things that constitute. And I identified with every single one of them, minus, hitting, let's say. And I just stood there with this, and it just washed over me. I'm not crazy. I am not crazy. Everything that I think is wrong that he is doing to me really is wrong. And
it's really happening.
It's really happening. And I'm not crazy. I'm not just imagining it. So that was my big aha moment. And then it took me 2 more years before I finally left. And my inciting incident, my line in the sand, and not to be graphic, but he beat my son. He beat my son with a belt under the guise of discipline.
Right.
And I was really put in a position, and that doesn't sound the way I want it to sound, but I had to come to the realization that if I did not leave, I was at risk of losing my children.
Right.
And I had to and all this time I was convincing myself that I was staying in this relationship to protect my children.
Right. You're staying to be a good mom.
Yes. And this whole thing of, okay, well, if I leave him, more than likely he's going to get joint custody, and they're going to be going with him possibly 50-50, but at the very least, one night a week and every other weekend. And I won't have eyes on them. I won't be able to protect them. And that was my big second aha moment of, but you're not protecting them now.
Right.
And so that was my line in the sand. And I literally sent him off to work one morning. I had to devise an exit plan.
Right.
Anybody who's gone through this, you know that you don't just get to say, I'm out. I had to devise an exit plan. So over the next few days, three or 4 days, I devised an exit plan. I sent him off to work just like everything was normal, put my kids on the bus just like everything was normal. I went to my local women's crisis center, met with an advocate. They walked me through an exit plan. They got the paperwork, helped me get the paperwork filed for a protective order. And I went, grabbed as much as I could, threw it in my vehicle, took it to my parents, went and got my parents and I went and picked up my kids from school. They were in elementary school. They're 10 and 7 at this time. And we got in the vehicle. And this is probably the one thing that I still have not completely reconciled in my soul about the whole thing, is that they went to school one morning thinking that everything was normal. They literally got picked up from school, put in a car, and their whole life changed from that moment, because we left and went. We live in Indiana. My sisters live in Georgia. So we got on the road and we headed to Georgia, because the advocate recommended that we leave town, because anybody who's dealt with domestic violence, that first, them finding out that you've left them, that's the most volatile time. So they suggested that I get out of town. We get on the road to Georgia and I send a text message and say, I've left. I have the kids. I have a protective order. Do not contact me. And that was his first inclination that there was anything going on as far as me leaving, making a plan to leave. And that was it. I never went back.
Wow, that I commend you for being strong enough to leave a situation. And a lot of times it's our children, right? It's our kids that we think about, and it's our kids that push us to make those hard decisions. And even for those of you guys who are listening, even if you don't have children, you are important enough to make that hard decision to leave. You are important enough. So don't wait for it to be, I have kids and now I want to leave. If you're in a situation like this, you are worth it. So you're worth getting out of that situation. So Carla, you're now driving to Georgia, right? So you have left your husband. He's gotten this text, and I'm sure, you can only imagine what his response is in that moment. What are you thinking and feeling as you're driving away from your marriage?
Well, I'm really scared.
Yeah.
I'm scared, and not even so much physically scared, but April, I stayed all this time because everyone always asks, well, why don't you just leave?
Right.
Why don't you just leave?
Just leave.
Just leave. Well, first of all, there's a lot of factors in that, but this was what kept going through my mind. If this is the way he treats me and he loves me, what is he going to do to me when he hates me?
That's so good.
And that was the thought. I was scared because I wasn't 100% sure what he was capable of, but I felt like it was a lot.
Yeah.
And I knew he was not going to take this lying down. I knew that I just put my gloves on and I was in for the fight of my life.
Yeah.
And I was, and he showed me, and he showed me what he would do to me once he hated me.
Yeah.
And, there was a whole lot of first of all, there's the bargaining. I mean, the very first thing he was doing was like, don't do this, we can work this out. I can be better. Da, da, da. And then once he found out that I was not coming back, I mean, it immediately went to the threats. Like, you were never going to take my children from me. And, basically I'll make your life a living hell, which he did. I mean, he did to the best of his ability, right, for the next several years. So, yeah.
Yeah, I call it, riding the roller coaster. There's just so many emotions that you're going through in those moments. And that's even when you have left a divorce that wasn't necessarily abusive, and when you left a marriage that wasn't necessarily abusive, and you just, shattered your kids' lives or just uprooted your life, there's a whole myriad of emotions that go through that on top of the fear of this other person. So you mentioned going to the crisis center. And one of the things that I like to share with women when I'm coaching them is the importance of asking for help, right? So you said, you had an exit strategy, but you got help to do that. So over the course of those first few years, whether it was through the divorce proceedings or just putting your life back together, what are some of the places, or who did you ask for help to support you along that way?
Yeah. So, and I want to also, we have this idea of what an abuse victim looks like.
Yes.
And who they are, and, anyway. And of course, one of the very first things that I found out is that abuse, domestic violence, it knows no socioeconomic status. It knows no education status. It knows no race, religion, any of those things. I mean, by anybody looking at me and who I am, that was the first thing they would say is, I cannot believe you let this happen to you.
Right.
Because I present, and I am in every aspect of my life, a very strong, independent, get her, let's get this thing done, educated. I was a teacher. I was a teacher. So I'm not just educated, I'm an educator.
Right.
and I'm on staff at a church. I'm a worship minister. And this is happening to me.
Yeah.
This happened to me. So, unfortunately, the church was of no help to me.
Yeah.
And all the help that I received was secular, was outside of the church, which again is another reason that I got certified as a Christian life coach, so that I could be a woman of faith that was able to give them better advice than, God hates divorce.
Absolutely. Right.
And actually have the tools. So I used the crisis center. And so then once I used them, then I started working with them. I started volunteering with them, partnering with them. And I co-founded a task force with them for my county, because my county didn't have a domestic violence task force at the time. So I co-founded a task force for domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking.
Wow.
So that I can start being an advocate for my county and getting the word out and putting a face to domestic violence, besides some poster that has a lady with a bruise on her, her eye black. So I partnered with them. I started partnering with the place that I actually currently work part-time for, the where we got our supervised visitation.
Okay.
So I now partner and work with that nonprofit organization, helping them with their marketing and development so that we can get the word out about them. But I started supporting them by going to their fundraisers and their galas and sharing their stuff on, social media. So I just started partnering with the entities that helped me, so that I could get the word out about what they were doing. And I'm still, that task force is still going strong, as I think we're 4 or 5 years in now. Like I said, I work part-time for Parenting Time Center, helping, doing networking for them and marketing for them. And then I just started self-educating. I started reading books. I started reading books like Boundaries, like Why Does He Do That by Lundy Bancroft, Codependent No More. I just started self-educating and reading books and articles and taking webinars. And I just started learning everything I could about it. And I got counseling. I went to counseling, and, that was a process too, because just because you go to a counselor, doesn't mean that you have to stay with that same one the whole entire time. If they aren't meeting your need, or you don't feel like you're getting what you need out of it, don't assume that it's you. Maybe they're just not the right fit for you. So I actually, throughout the course of that, had 3 different counselors that I went to. The first one just wasn't a good fit. The second one was a Christian counselor, and she was a good fit. And she was the first Christian who ever told me that what I was experiencing was domestic violence. She's the first Christian to put the word on it for me. And she was the first Christian to tell me that what I was experiencing was PTSD. She said, what you're experiencing is PTSD. And so I went to her for a while, and until I felt like I had gotten everything that I could get from her. And then I went to a third counselor because I felt like I was kind of ready to go to the next level. And I felt like I had gone as far as I could go with the second counselor. And so I just went on this journey of healing and education. And I'm, as a former educator, or I'm still an educator, but I truly buy into that knowledge is power, but it isn't powerful until you put it into action.
Yes.
So you can have all this head knowledge, but until you implement it and put it into action, that's when it becomes powerful.
It's so good that you say that, Carla, because, when people find out that I've been married 3 times, right? They're like, like, how did you do that 3 times? And that's exactly it, right? I had read, I had knowledge, I had gone to some counseling and things like that, but I never implemented those things in my life, right? Things that I would read about, oh, that sounds good, but I never implemented those things. And so I'm thinking about when you were talking about, when I asked the question of who did you ask for help, your response was, I helped others. And one thing that I talk about in the book is your pain having a purpose, right? And I put it in 3 categories. So the first one is your pain is there to prune you. So it's there to get something out of your life that God needs removed in order for you to be the best you. The second thing is, I think that our pain is there to remind us of who God is, right? So sometimes I equate it to, when we are in a sport and we've got a coach, sometimes we try to go off and do our own thing, but our coach is there for a reason, right? And then the third thing I talk about is our pain is not just for us. The purpose of our pain is for us to help someone else. And so I loved that you made a decision. You had a choice. You made a choice to say, you know what, I'm not just going to heal, but I want to help other women to heal. And then went back to those same organizations that helped you. So in looking at you're now, going through this divorce process and just thinking about some of the practical things, like I need a roof over my head. I need income. I've got children. I need to figure those things out. What are some of the things that you did along your journey to get to where you are now so that you could provide for your family and things like that?
Well, I was very fortunate on many fronts. I did have a career where I made enough money that I could be pretty well self-sufficient. Was it tight being a single parent on a teacher's salary? And did I have to get a little help from my parents here and there? Yes. So it was, yes. But essentially, I could support myself and my children. And so that I was very fortunate there. And I had a great support system as far as my family was concerned. The first thing I did was I moved in with my parents, and I lived with my parents for 10 months until I was able to get emotionally stable enough to parent on my own and to be alone, not alone because I might hurt myself or anything like that, but just it was still a very volatile situation. And I and my parents were very concerned about me being alone, being by myself, because that left me extremely vulnerable. So once it took about 10 months for the divorce to be finalized. And so once that was finalized and I wasn't having to, we got to put the seal on that. Then I felt like I was ready to make the next step of getting my own place, my own, home to stay in and start the next chapter with my boys. I was fortunate enough, like I said, I had a good career. I was able to get some help from my parents in, those extra parts, because now I got 2 boys that are in extracurricular activities and all of those things. I did have, a good support system as far as friends are concerned, but don't let your pride be so high that you don't check into getting the services, utilizing the services that are there to help you. That is their purpose. That's why they're there. You aren't taking advantage. You aren't taking something from somebody else. If you need it, use it. Get it. If there's a time period that you need to, utilize food stamps, feed yourself and your children, get those food stamps.
Good.
if you need to go to the housing development, if you need Section 8, apartment, or, do it. Utilize all of the things that are at your disposal. It's not always easy. I mean, sometimes that's a part-time job trying to figure out how to get, fill out the applications and get everything submitted. Because, when you're talking about government or government assistance, you're also talking about hoops and red tape and all that stuff. But be persistent. But be persistent because you are worth it. And get the mental health help,
the support.
That is key, because no matter what, even if it is, I say this, even if it is best case scenario, and you go through a divorce and everything's amicable, and which I don't understand. I don't know. That was my experience. I don't understand the people that go like, "Oh, he's still my best friend, and we're still, still best friends." Oh my God. Makes no sense to me, but I'm glad that's your experience, because that was not mine. But under the best of circumstances, divorce is devastating.
It is.
And it is a death of a marriage. It's the death of a relationship. No matter how well you could still get along. And that is a grieving process, just like a physical death. The death of that marriage is a grieving process.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to just flip a switch. And someone asked me on this call last night, she had a couple of friends going through divorce, and like she said, like, what advice would you give them to make this easier for them? And I was like, well, I said, the reality is this, especially initially, especially probably the first 6 months, you just have to embrace the suck.
Yes.
Because there's nothing fun. There's nothing, it's just, you have to go through that period.
You do.
And that is where the hard work is done.
It is. Yeah,
but it's worth it.
It is definitely worth it. I wish and all of my divorce, well, the last one was terrible, but my first two, I would say they weren't amicable. The first one was amicable. So I've been through all three, right? I've been through this isn't working. We're still friends, but we don't need to be together. That was my first one. My second one was I'm leaving for a myriad of reasons. And then the third one was I got 20 minutes notice that my husband was filing for divorce and leaving our house. So I've kind of been through the three, kind of scenarios, but you're absolutely right. Even when I initiated the divorce, even when it was amicable, there was still, like you said, you have to embrace the suck. You have to ride the roller coaster of emotions, because it's just, you're on this ride, and until you're ready to get off, you've got to ride it and, try to enjoy it. But one of my favorite quotes is from Lisa Turkhurst, I believe her name is. And she said that, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's something along the lines of, in order for us to move on with our lives, we have to accept that our old life is dead. It's gone. It's over. And so that's one of the things that I share with women who are saying, it's hard for me to let go. And it's not necessarily that you can't let go of the person. You don't want to let go of the life you had. And that life is no more. It's done. So in thinking about that journey and embracing the suck, and, the fact that you were married for 15 years and now you're this single parent, I want to talk briefly about identity. So when we get married, right, we are now not just April and Carla, we're mom, we're wife, we're all these, we're the tax person, we're, all these different people, in our homes. And then you go through this divorce and you come out and it's almost like, who the heck am I now? And so what did that look like for you after divorce?
Yeah, that was quite the journey. So if we're being completely honest, completely transparent, I made the extremely wise choice to have an affair with a married man who was showing me attention.
Yep.
Yes. And making me feel all the feels that I hadn't felt in 15 years and
Mm-hmm.
telling me all the things that I hadn't heard, but I always wanted to hear. And I was just, I say I can't claim insanity because I
Right.
wasn't insane, but I wasn't in my right mind.
Yeah. I
I
understand.
I wasn't in my right mind. So, and to put another layer onto this, I was the worship minister, and the married man that I was having an affair with was the pastor. So my world completely broke up. I mean, just exploded when that became public.
Yeah.
It became public on a Sunday morning before church was to start, and there's no worship minister and no pastor, and it's Sunday morning, and
no one's on the platform. No one's on stage. Where's everybody at?
Where's everybody at? So that was, so then I go through this public humiliation.
Yeah.
And essentially get excommunicated. I'm immediately ousted from the church.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's coming around me wanting to start my restoration plan.
Right.
I just get the big scarlet letter on my chest.
Mm-hmm.
and good luck. Good luck. We hope you get your life together, but it's not going to be here. So just whenever I felt like I was broken, then this takes the sledgehammer and then just shatters me and just into dust.
Yeah.
So I had a decision to make.
Mm-hmm.
This was either going to be, I am turning away from God because what good has this done me? Here I have followed God my whole entire life. I'm now divorced. I've been, I'm a victim of abuse. I've gone through a divorce. I've gone through this affair with this pastor. I'm out of ministry. So
what now?
I'm out. This has gotten me nowhere.
Yeah.
Or I could get laser focused on my relationship with Christ and ask him to show me who I am through his eyes.
That's so good. Yeah.
And ask him to put me back together the way he wants me to be. And I had enough real experience with Holy Spirit to know that I did not want to live a life apart from God.
That's so good.
And so that's what I did. I became laser focused on my relationship with Christ. A good friend of mine got me the devotional Jesus Calling.
Mm-hmm.
So every night at 9:00, I put my kids to bed. I go to my room, shut the door, put on my worship music, get my Jesus Calling, my Bible, my journal, and I had my date with Jesus.
Mm.
And I just dove in. I literally got on my face before God. I was as low as I could get, couldn't get any lower. And physically got as low as I could and said, just put me back together, put me together.
Yeah.
And through that process, I really started studying what does the Bible really say about biblical, God-centered, loving, healthy relationships.
Yeah.
I felt like there had to be more to it than just wives submit to your husband.
Absolutely.
I was like, surely there's more to it, but that's all we ever hear. So I really did a deep dive into Ephesians 5, where it talks about what a godly marriage and relationship is. And that was just a little teeny bit, and the majority of what it was talking about was addressed to the husband.
Yeah.
That one sentence was like the only thing that was about the wife. The rest of it was about how a husband is supposed to love his wife. And, to put it in a nutshell, love, honor, cherish.
Yeah.
Love, honor, cherish. That is what God wants for me. It's what he wants for every single one of us, to be in a relationship that's based upon love, not butterflies love,
Right.
but love. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, it is not rude, it does not boast, it keeps no record of wrong. That is love. So that kind of love, honor, which we would call respect, mutual respect, and cherishing each other and cherishing this relationship. And so, I just really started focusing on becoming the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with. Because I'm the only person that I'm going to guaranteed to be with until the day I die. There are no guarantees.
Good. Yes.
So how do I become the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with? And I'm not half of a person. I'm not looking for my better half. I am made whole and complete through Christ.
Yes.
So me and Christ, now I'm a whole and complete person. I don't need my Jerry Maguire moment. I don't need someone to complete me. I am complete.
Yeah.
I am whole. I'm complete. And then anybody. So I'm becoming who I'm supposed to be, who God created me to be, and I'm creating the life that I want to live. And so then anybody that God sees fit to bring into my life is there to complement.
Yes.
Is to be a complement to me and the life that I'm creating for myself. And so when I met I am remarried. And so when I met my husband, I said, I'm going to take the burden off of you of having to complete me.
Oh, that's so good.
Because that's what we're doing is when we're saying you complete me, you are I'm a half of a person and you are the other half to my whole. That's a lot of pressure.
It is.
To put on somebody else. And I'm like, I am whole. I am complete. This is who I am. This is the life that I'm creating for myself. Does this seem like something you would like to partner with me on? Is this a life that you would like to be a part of? And he said he did. And so we are. We're getting ready to have our 9-year anniversary in March. Yay.
I love it.
Yeah. And that's the basis of what I do. What I coach my women on is becoming the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, and get out of this mode of being graspy and needy. And
yes.
I hope I can find someone who loves me. I hope I can find someone who deems me worthy, or finds me valuable or finds me attractive or any of these things. You're giving them way too much power and control.
Yes, way too much.
You establish what your boundaries are. You establish what your qualifications are for them to be a part of your life, because that's an honor. Anybody that you allow to come in and partner with you, it's going to be an honor for them to be partnered with you, instead of trying to look like, oh gosh, I hope they want me. No, you're in the driver's seat. You get to decide what your criteria is for the people that you allow into your life, and especially that you allow to partner with you.
Wow. I love all of that. I love your journey of doing the work, which is something that I talk about quite frequently, is we, at the end of the day, we have to do the work. And you had a choice to make. I hear women say all the time, well, I don't have a choice. When you say you don't have a choice, you're choosing not to heal. You are choosing. Now, that choice might be hard, but we always have a choice. And I love how you chose to do the work. You chose to reach out to God. You chose to be vulnerable. And look where you are today. It has warmed my heart just to talk to you today. I mean, I've got some nuggets, y'all. I'm like, okay, Carla. All right. I'm writing some stuff down after I listen to this. So, Carla, thank you so much for chatting with me today. Like I said, when we met, I just knew that we were like kindred spirits, and I knew that you just had some wisdom for my audience. And so, just in closing, if there was a woman listening to this and they're saying, you know what, either I am on that verge of leaving a marriage or I've just left, what words, what would you tell them in this season?
So don't run from God. He's not mad at you. And especially if you are in an abusive situation, the victim doesn't break the covenant, the abuser does. So don't carry that burden, because that's not yours to carry. Getting yourself safe is not you breaking the covenant of your marriage. You can thank the abuser for that. Tap into any local resources that you have, and find you a good counselor or a good coach.
All right, now
we're out there. But I say divorce doesn't have to mean alone.
Yes.
Find your tribe, build your tribe, even if it's an online community. There are so many resources out there now. So find you an online community, find you a support group, find you a good counselor, start reading books, listening to podcasts. You know, all of this, when I went through my divorce 12 years ago, we didn't, I'm sure there were podcasts, but there are an unbelievable amount of podcasts that you can listen to, YouTube videos, books. There are so many resources, online communities, Facebook groups. So there really isn't an excuse to not do the work, because you have an unlimited amount of resources.
That is so good. Yeah, there's no excuse to not do the work. There's not.
And I do believe this too. If you don't do the work, you will repeat the cycle.
Yeah. Look, I am living proof that if you don't do the work, you will repeat the cycle. And I feel like it gets worse every single time. Every time. Yeah.
Well, you have to learn the lesson. All of this, there is a lesson. I'm not saying that everything happens to you for the purpose of teaching you a lesson. Like, that's not like, it's like,
right.
It's not up there. It's not God saying, oh, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you a lesson. I'm not saying that, but there is a lesson to be learned.
Yes, absolutely.
In all of it.
Absolutely.
So do the work so that you don't repeat the cycle.
I love it. I love it. So lastly, Coach Carla, where can people connect with you? They may have heard this podcast and said, you know what? I want to follow her. I want to connect with her. I may even want to work with her. So where can they connect with you at?
I am on all social media as Coach Carla Webb. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm technically on Twitter, although it's not my jam. Really don't do much with Twitter.
Yeah.
I haven't found my tribe on Twitter. So Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is probably my number one. Okay. And Instagram, and then LinkedIn. I do a lot on LinkedIn. And my website is coachcarlawebb.com. My email is coachcarlawebb@gmail.com. So you put Coach Carla Webb in, you're going to find me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Coach Carla. I have loved talking to you, and I hope this has been a pleasant experience for you as well. So for those of you guys listening out there, thank you again for listening to another episode of Move the Finish Line. You know, my prayer really is that as we are doing these podcasts, as we're sharing ourselves and sharing information with you guys, that you guys will be the better for it and that it will help you move your own finish lines. So until next time, I love you guys. Go out there and do the work and move your finish lines. All right, y'all. Now, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I pray that it encourages you and you were able to laugh a little bit along the way. Now, if you know someone who has a story of resilience, restoration, and winning at life, let me know. I would love to share their story with my audience. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you guys don't miss a beat. If you want to connect with me, hop over to aprilnowlin.com where you can learn all about how I help women to cultivate their purpose so they can impact more people. You can connect with me on Facebook and Instagram and Clubhouse under April Nowlin. Thanks again for listening.